A Dungeons & Dragons group makes their DM an indecent proposal, and a dungeon master gives the party's rogue special treatment. All this and more on today's D&D horror stories with D&D Doge. So, let's get right into the stories. The time two of my players asked for pictures of my... by Reddit user, StuckAtWork271. I have moved around a bunch in my life, and D&D has always been something that I take with me wherever I go. I find groups, and as a forever DM, I am often the one who will wrangle up a gaggle of players I find, or folks who are interested in D&D, and try and give them a fun experience. This kicks off back in 2020, at the beginning of COVID. I was taking a course for work, and one of my classmates, we can call him Ted, mentioned that he enjoyed D&D, but could never find anyone to run it. Knowing this was my moment, I let him know that I run games, and have run games for years. If he has some friends that are interested, I'd gladly come over and run a little mini-adventure to get everyone's feet wet. Fast forward 3 to 4 weeks, and we've worked out a small party of 4, which includes an old coworker of his, we can call her Sally, and a couple that knew Sally. I'll just refer to them as the couple. The date is set, and I'm hyped. Then the session starts off bizarre. The couple has some bizarre character concepts that they cooked up after I asked for everyone to keep it simple for a first session, where one of them is Wolf and the other is Lamb, a la Kindred from League of Legends. They're trying, poorly and embarrassingly, to complete each other's sentences while role-playing, staring into each other's eyes the whole time, and it's at this point that I'm starting to feel somewhat voyeuristic. But a couple being weirdly into each other at the table has never stopped me before, and I trudge along. The entire time, Sally is talking about being a Wiccan and her love of kink with anyone who will listen, and Ted has taken to the ciders that people brought a bit hard. I apply a little pressure and introduce some NPCs to get the ball rolling, and before long, everyone is more or less following along in the prepared adventure. I dodge a few awkward situations between the couple as they continue to try and get their freak on, both in and out of game. Ted has a few more ciders, and I'm starting to lose him. And, oh no, Sally has gotten into the margarita mix. Time to bring this train back into the station and say my farewells. I quickly thought of a way to wrap up the session about an hour earlier than I had planned, and gave them some extra breadcrumbs to find the bad guy. And by the end of the final combat, before I can go into role-playing the conclusion, the couple had to leave early to go home and do something? They never quite said, and I didn't want to ask. Now it's just Ted, Sally, and I sitting around the table, wrapping up. Ted has had more than a few, and asks Sally to crash at her place, where the session happened. Sally offers him the couch and pours herself some more margarita mix. While I'm packing up, she's talking about how, quote, impressive it is that you, can command authority over a table like that. Being in my early 20s and naive, I just shrugged it off and replied with, not really. Everyone here wants to play. I just give them what they want. I say my goodbyes and begin driving home. As soon as I get into my car, the text messages start. I'm watching these all pop up with my car's notification thing on my GPS. Ted sent 6 messages that looked something like this. I know this might be forward, but you should show me your dick. Wait, send what now? Oh crap, I should not have said that. Please? No, don't. Sorry, I'm being weird. I had too much. Unless you want to. Sorry. Well, that was forward. Sally, who also sent me multiple messages to a similar tune. You should totally come over again sometime. I'd love to see what kind of kinks you're into. I feel like you could be a dom. Have you ever taken a BDSM test? You should send Ted and I some pictures of that dick. Well, I guess OP made a good impression? I'm approximating what they said, but yeah, needless to say, I was very uncomfortable. Before you ask, no, I didn't send anyone any pictures. Ted was horrified after. I told him no hard feelings. He wasn't overly pushy after I told him no, and I just ignored any other drunk texts that I got from him that night. Class was interesting for the remaining few months we had. I tried to play it cool after, but I think I made it worse by being very nonchalant about it. Sally also apologized for being drunk, but proceeded to hit on me more after. I declined her advances after being really weirded out about the whole situation. And I didn't DM for them again. TLDR. DM'd for a random party. After a cringe session, 2 of the people at the table got drunk and asked to see pictures of my dick. Well, that certainly is a first impression. I can only imagine the embarrassment that Ted felt after waking up and realizing that he sent OP those texts. Though something tells me that perhaps Sally may have egged Ted on to send those texts, as she sent similar ones just a little bit after. That and the fact that she actively pursued OP after the whole ordeal. At least OP took it in stride when dealing with Ted, but I don't blame him for not running any more games for that particular group. On to the next post. Dungeon Master misinterprets the monsters know what they're doing, leading to my cleric getting dogpiled. By Reddit user Clown Kisser. This happened to me a while ago, but I still think about it because of how bizarre this little incident felt. A few years back, I co-founded a college D&D group. We had a couple of games on campus before we started hosting off-campus. But before then, we ran a couple one-shots to get everyone accustomed to the game. One of these one-shots was DM'd by the other co-founder, who we'll call Bay. Our characters, all 5th level, were captured by a cult and thrown into a pit to be sacrificed to a bunch of face spiders and a sentient tree. My character, a human life cleric, wants to focus on doing his job and keeping the party healed up. So I cast Healing Word on our rogue, who was putting in a lot of work. After this, however, all 3 face spiders start to gang up on me relentlessly, very quickly dropping me to the single digits. Naturally, I take my action to disengage and have to cast a 3rd level Healing Word on myself to stay alive. Keep in mind, I'm the only one with healing magic, so we're in a bad spot if I drop to 0. The face spiders continue to dogpile me, getting me right back down into the single digits. At this point, I straight up ask Bay, why are they only targeting me? Bay responds, they saw you cast Healing Word, so they know you're a cleric. I read that the monsters know what they're doing. Excuse me? These spiders, with 6 intelligence, know that I'm a cleric? And they know that they need to make sure I'm dead before moving on to the rest of the party? Maybe I'm just petty, but that feels like BS to me. I expressed this to Bay, and thankfully, after a brief, if heated, no thanks to me, discussion, Bay agreed to spread them out a bit more, and the dogpiling stopped. What a weird game of D&D that was. Yeah, I think that DM must have been new, as that seems like it would be a newbie mistake. Sure, enemies like guards, bandits and such may have the forethought to attack the magic user first, as they would have a high enough intelligence score. But monsters with low intelligence, like face spiders, would probably just go for whoever's closest to them. At least OP did what a lot of people in stories like these should do, and talk to the DM. And after discussion, even if it did get a little heated, DM realized OP had a point and corrected the mistake they were making. And hopefully, OP has a lot of great games ahead of them. And hopefully, you are enjoying the video. And if you are, I hope you consider critting that like button and subscribing. If not for me, then how about for Alice? You don't want to disappoint Alice now, do you? But with that appeal to your emotions done, let's get to the following story. Dungeon Master tried to kill my character in the first session, while letting the rogue do whatever he wanted. By Reddit user, ShyGuard. I am a longtime DM, and as such, I don't get to play very often. So after posting on Discord about wanting to play, I joined an online group. There was me playing a paladin, a rogue, and a wizard. The DM sent us off on a couple of simple quests to kill some wolves and try to steal back an item from some harpies. At first, everything was going fine. We traveled through the woods, find the wolves, and roll initiative. This is where it started to go bad. Wizard and I both rolled okay initiative, though the rogue rolled a nat 20. The Dungeon Master tells Rogue he can have 2 full turns during a surprise round before we start initiative because of his nat 20. So the Rogue, a level 3 assassin, charges in, and the DM grants him sneak attack on every hit, which is an auto crit because of the surprise round and assassinate. So Rogue just goes crazy, killing off like 5 of the wolves during his 2 free turns. Then initiative starts, and everything kind of proceeds smoothly, even though over half the wolves were dead at this point. Something isn't adding up here. Even with the surprise round, I feel that it isn't mathematically possible for the rogue to kill off 5 enemies. Am I crazy here? We then headed over to the Harpy quest. The DM informed us that the Harpies weren't evil, so we didn't have to kill them, just try and get back the item they had stolen. The Harpy's nest was in an abandoned building on the side of a cliff with a 100-foot drop into crashing waves below. There was a small pathway leading through a cave that we could use to approach the Harpies. The rogue charges ahead, making a single stealth check to move around 100 or so feet towards the Harpies. I would actually say that is fair, as he would be able to use movement, action, and bonus action in order to dash, though that's just my thinking. Both the wizard and I stayed back on the rogue's orders until he was far enough ahead. I then tried to move quietly, rolling a stealth check at disadvantage. To my dismay, I rolled 2 nat 1s, so the DM informed me that the sound of my chainmail armor clanking alerted the Harpies to my presence, and they were now pissed. Cue initiative rolls. I rolled less than the Harpies, so they got to act before me or the wizard, while the rogue continued to creep towards them. The Harpies hit me with their luring song, which somehow I was the only one that had to make a saving throw, despite the text saying every creature in 300 feet, and the wizard standing 10 feet away from me. I, of course, failed the save, and I am now charmed by the Harpies. One of the Harpies picks me up and drags me off the cliff, holding me some 100 plus feet over the open water and crushing waves. If they drop me, I am dead, as the fall would drop me to 0, and since no one can save me, that would be it for my character. On the rogue's turn, he moves some 60 feet into the Harpy's nest, searches for the item, finds a locked chest, is able to unlock the chest, pick up the item, and move out of the house and some 60 feet away, not making a single stealth check or even a roll to pick the lock. All of this is done while we are still in initiative. Well, that is a lot of stuff to do on top of that movement. I don't think the action economy would allow for all of that in one turn. Not to mention, not even making the rogue make a roll for lockpicking. On Wizard's turn, he attempts to talk to the harpies, but they are angry because I made noise, apparently, since that's literally all that has happened. The wizard and harpies argue back and forth for several minutes about releasing me and letting us leave. The dungeon master skips my turn since I can't do anything, despite the fact that I should have gotten a chance to save from charm. Rogue then gets to move super speed again back through the cave towards us, where he walks out and tries to calm the harpies by talking to them. Not once did the rogue have to roll a persuasion check or anything. He just got to do it. And after a bit of back and forth, and more than one threat to simply drop me for disturbing them, the rogue is forced to give up his bag of holding, which he had just purchased at the start of the session, in order to appease the harpies, after forcing me to agree to repay him the price that he paid for the bag. Otherwise, they would just leave me there. The harpies released me and flew away, so we got out of there. Once we were back in town, the session came to an end, and I left the party, telling the DM that I wouldn't be back. As far as I know, no one in the group had known each other before we started playing. This was our first session together, and my only session with the group. Any attempt I made to try to tell the DM that he skipped my turn, or didn't let me make my save, was ignored, and I was berated by the other two players for pissing off the harpies, when, again, literally all I did was take a few steps forward and made noise. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good first impression for a new campaign. Something tells me that the DM was probably friends with the rogue player, thus the seemingly special treatment. It certainly did seem odd how much the rogue was able to do within the confines of 6 seconds, like moving so far and performing actions, not to mention not having to make any skill checks while picking locks or negotiating with the harpies. Then, for the other players and the DM to berate OP for simply failing a stealth check was a bit much as well. Now, normally, I would say to not judge a game by one bad session, but in this case, with all those red flags, it was probably a wise decision to just leave the game. Though, what do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comments. But with that, let's get to today's final D&D horror story. Unreasonable, Disgusting Behavior by Reddit user AnimeOverAddict. So this DM my significant other dealt with had all kinds of really restrictive rules for his campaign, which I saw as red flags during the session 0 and promptly dropped out of the campaign due to them. Like, bro was really hardcore restrictive of magic in general, with rules like limited uses on cantrips, banning cantrips such as prestidigitation for being, quote, too OP, and using all of your daily spell slots gives you 2 levels of exhaustion. As someone who was going to play a ranger, a character with an already limited number of spell slots, I just didn't feel up to it, since I'm likely to use my spell slots quickly for stuff like Hunter's Mark. Bro also killed off one of the players in the first session. Now, that wouldn't necessarily be too bad, but it was explicitly because the character had gotten spotted by violent guards. Bro didn't just die though. He was hit with a single arrow at level 1, and it went through his eye and killed him instantly. Not like a lucky crit that did enough damage to insta-kill either. He just had the character killed off. He did the same to my significant other later on, by just killing them off. I'll explain that closer to the end. So, my significant other's patron, which in this DM's world, every magic user had a patron because people could not naturally have magic, was rather evil and saw them in a, sexual nature. This ended up being bad because the DM played out dream sequences for all the player characters. For my significant other's dream sequence, their patron SA'd them, and not like fade to black either. He played out the scene graphically, explaining the sensations in front of the entire party, with absolutely no prior warning or consent from anyone, including my significant other, who was the player being treated this way. I was livid, but my significant other still chose to remain after they and another player confronted the DM about that post-session. The very last session my significant other and a few friends who we made through that campaign played in, the DM had put his favorite evil NPC out in the open in front of my significant other's character and a couple party mates. One of the party mates had accepted a hit on that NPC, and they were shown to take their job seriously and not dilly-dally. So they immediately attempted to and succeeded in killing him. The DM was mad, and a fight broke out between the guards and the 3 players. That was okay, since it was out in the open. What's not okay is that the players won the fight, barely escaped the area and got to the docks, and the last second, the DM had them be surrounded and killed without a fight. His players successfully dealt with the consequences, and he off-screened them. So, yeah, really bad DM experience that I noped out of before the really hard crap. But still, I heard about it weekly due to my significant other and a couple newer friends at the time still playing in the game. Well, it sounds like OP dodged a bullet by dropping out of that game before it even began, due to the red flags that they saw. Though, unfortunately, OP's significant other did the complete opposite. This dungeon master just sounded like trash, killing a player's character in the first session without any sort of roles or anything, then describing in detail that SA thing to OP's SO and the other players. Then, when the players do good in a fight against a BBEG, the DM gets mad and just basically rocks fall, you're all deads them? I would not blame the players at all for not being in any more of that DM's games. Though I'd tell OP to look on the bright side, as they made some new friends due to the whole thing. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and hope that your games remain horror story free. Until next time.